Bye.
Bye. Right. Sorry, I was just going to send this through so you guys can start playing around with it. It's the, oh yeah, Daniel, would you mind just quickly just reminding us what this is about while I push this through? Is Daniel around? Is Daniel around, or am I just talking to? Is anyone around? I can't hear anyone.
Yeah, I am here at least.
I'm here too.
Yeah, is Daniel there, or is no? Okay, so just, I think I've done this the right way around. Should be done. So the idea here is it started out as the YAML dump idea that I was discussing before, and I put into Tiger as certain tasks to look at. And when I was first trying it, I was trying it using various case, I don't know, some case statements in InSpec. So what you was getting is we'd build up each map, and to see it per platform, what each, so for each formula, the map might be different for each unique platform, and you want to make sure we can verify that in some way, so that when changes are made to the formula or to the YAML files, that the map that's produced is deterministic. We know exactly what's in there. And Daniel actually took that further and put a PR through to the OpenSSH formula, which has been merged. And now I've done a couple of PRs in the last day or two, one to the OpenNTPD formula and one now for Eric for his PR. So what the idea is we have these in place, and then when there are changes made to the map.ginger, especially if there's a big refactor, that we're completely sure that it's doing what we need it to do, and it's not introducing any regressions. Have you seen it in operation, anybody? Has anyone had a look at it? Because otherwise I can show you now what it looks like.
No,
I've
I
only
haven't
had
tried
to
it, so.
Sorry, what was that? No one's familiar with it.
Not particularly, no.
Okay, so let's have a look at it here. Just give me 1 second. What am I doing here? Trying to concentrate on this at the same time. I'm going to make a mistake for sure. Right, I think this is it. Yeah, so I've got the latest images and I've got that. So let's push this through. 1 second, is that I've already done that. So let's force that through. So if I go to, let's just go there first. And this is the pseudoas formula. So I've already actually tested this. We'll let that one run in the background. In fact, I could actually just set the PR up as well, so you guys can see it from that end. So not here. Just grab the message I want. So let's have a look at the output first quickly, because that'll probably make it easier than looking at the PR itself. So what you have is, if you search for map.ginger, there's a dump that takes place, and this one's actually very small at the moment. The pseudoas formula is not maybe the best example, but what it's doing, it's showing you what's being merged by the map. So in this one, it's very small. Once we merge in Eric's PR, this will actually increase in size, and it'll show what changes have been introduced. And as long as those changes are what we're expecting, that's completely fine. And just at the bottom, so it goes through and it compares against the comparison file that we've put into inspec. And as long as that matches up, so we have it here. The actual dump file over here is expected to include, and then the actual content of the dump file. So if we go to the PR a second, and we go to Debian 10, oh, it's going to take a bit. Right here. So this is the actual dump file that we've put as a test file into integration defaults files. We're using a map_map data directory, and then each unique platform gets its own YAML file, and you put in there what the map produces. Now, one of the benefits of this is it gives you a chance to see in advance even. So when you're just looking at a formula, you can go through and see, rather than trying to merge it in your mind, try to work out what might come out to the other side. You can just go and look at these files here and see, okay, this formula, this is what map is produced at the moment. In fact, a better example would be the OpenMTBD formula, because it's got a bit more than that, and some of them are slightly different. Actually, none of them are different yet. They will be once we merge Nicholas's PR. So you see here again, for each unique platform, we can see the entire map. Yeah. And I mean, is there anything that you can see in here that seems like, well, that's going to be too much, or there's going to be an issue here?
No, just a question. This will prepare a map, a dump of every setup that we prepare for testing, right? So, for example, if you have different stanzas in kitchen, say default and some other thing, and you have different salt pillars for those, this will prepare a map for each of them.
Well, the idea is, see, we need to test that. That's one that hasn't been tried yet. But what we need to do is try that with, actually, I think I did do one differently. When I was testing this, because I set up another suite for Arch, because there was, if you look over here, actually, you can't see it here. It's actually in the again, I've done some testing on this formula a bit further. Where can I pull this up? Just give me 1 second. I'll show you what I mean. I know your question. What your question is? You're saying, obviously, we have different pillars for different suites. And
yeah, for example, I am just considering the one that I am working with Nicholas now, the Prometheus one.
Yeah.
That we have two suites, default and repo.
Basically, the idea is yes. The other is if we've done this correctly, it will happen. And I did try it with this formula a bit further by making another suite for Arch, because it needed a separate pillar, and it worked fine. And it had that separation, and you could still have the comparison file, which adjusted depending on the suite.
Okay.
And different pillars and different configuration. But the idea is I mean, having reviewed so many PRs that deal with the map, and I've actually been doing a lot of this locally, like mucking around locally, trying so many different things over the last year or so. And it was getting frustrating because I obviously don't have all the platforms available. I can't spin up Kitchen for every single one, every single time. And it should have been something that was automated as part of our, our CI. And finally getting through to this point, I'm sure you guys will really appreciate the benefit of this, especially as a reviewer as well, or even just looking at a formula. What does this formula actually have in its map? Hi. I was calling for you.
Oh, yes. But yes. I have issue with my microphone, sorry.
All right, okay. Yeah. You left. You go on.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was going to say that for me, the idea of this pillar dump is great, because we can even add the default pillar dump with nothing set up in the formula in the documentation, saying, okay, when you use the formula as is, it will run with this pillar, and you know the values that will be considered. That's a hell of a documentation.
Yes, for sure.
Because if you remember, many people nowadays use pillar example as a dump of the default configuration, and they say, okay, the values commented out are the commented values are the default, so you change this and that. But having this as a dump in the documentation saying the default pillar this formula is using is this,
Yes.
that would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree too.
Yeah. This is an example. It's not a pure example of what you're saying, but what I found when I was looking at this formula is that, so I'm trying to get to the right point. It's just a bit finicky here. What was happening was in this formula, it was using, and it currently is using as part of the testing, it was using Debian instead of Arch. So I set up a separate pillar for it and a separate suite for Arch and ran this, and I was able to adjust these values. So yeah, I'm pretty confident it'll work for all combinations. And again, it takes all the burden off us, puts it all into InSpec where it belongs. And so as a verifier, hopefully it will make, is there anything you want to add to that, Daniel? Because there was any points you had about this? Because you're the one who put the final implementation together.
Oh, sorry, I didn't really follow the conversation. I was trying to fix my sound.
Okay. No, the main idea was, have you tried it with different suites? Have you, with different files for each platform, unique platform?
Oh, no.
You haven't tried that yet? No, I've tried a bit,
Yeah.
and I'm saying is, from what I can see, it's working fine. Yeah, and we're based upon, we're going to have to use a shared library that Daniel's provided to give us just a few little adjustments. What's in that shared library, Daniel?
The library?
Yes. I mean, I've got it here
Yes.
anyway. Yeah.
Yes,
Here it is.
it was to ease and to make much more usable the inspect to get per OS finger like resources and to match to avoid lots of boilerplates for each formula, for each test in each formula,
Yeah, for
and
example,
to bind the corner cases like Arch or things like that, or the names.
Yeah.
Permit to have a single place where we are doing the same the adjustment for specific platforms.
Yeah. So it gives us basically our own version of a platform finger that we can rely upon from an inspect perspective, rather than I was mangling one together. It was a simple mangle. It was okay, but I think this is a lot cleaner. What Daniel's put together. So one of my last efforts with the YAML dump idea was over here. And where did I put that? Oh, it was under the not under here. Sorry, it was under the test.
Just a question.
Yes. Go for it.
If you modify the map, you need to regenerate the map data, the files, manually, I imagine, because we don't have something automated to generate all the maps.
You know, I wonder if we could do that. Because right now, like I said, is it here? No, not this form. Where's the original one I was doing? I've got so many tabs open now, I'm losing my way. What formula was I just doing? Sudos. Yeah, let's have a look at this. Yes, I know what you're saying. I'm just going to just show you my reply to that if I can find it. And maybe Daniel can chime in here as well, because
I understand you can make a fake build with all the platforms and just dump the data.
Yeah, what I'm thinking
That's
is,
what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Go on, Daniel. Go on, Daniel. You can explain.
Yes. Personally, for the OpenSSH formula, when I started to make that pull request, that's what I did. I set up a virtual machine with Kitchen. I run the verify for every platforms available in Kitchen, and I did the copy of the generated salt map Jinja dump. Yes, salt map data dump. I copied that to the virtual machine and commit it in the Git repository.
Yeah, so for small adjustments, you wouldn't really need to, because you'd be able to just, see here if you need to make a change, especially to one platform only, pull that in and just add that to the actual file manually. But like Daniel said, you can actually do it, if you need to locally for mass generations.
Yes, for the first time you convert a formula, doing the mass generation and copying the YAML file directly in your source tree is the better things to do, is the best things to do. And for example, for OpenSSH, I made a pull request today, and I had to change the test files to get yes.
This one here.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, actually, this is a good example because then we can see
So,
what we're talking about. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And in the different, yes, you
Oh,
have.
these are all of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's easy to do that by hand. Actually, I automate with a sed for doing that in all the files because it's the same modification across all the files. But for an initial conversion to the map data verification, you can do that in a bulk. Just I put that on IRC, if I remember, a little for loop to get the files from all the kitchen's Docker containers and put that in your Git repository. And afterward, from time to time, I really prefer myself to do that by hand to make sure that the modification to the map and the modification to the verification file match.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And you don't have to, I mean, you don't have to do it blindly because we are dumping what the map contains in the new, with the new commit. Each new commit will show you, like I said, this isn't it. It's over here. You'll always be able to see what's actually being dumped. So you're not doing it blindly. You can check here just for your own sanity to make sure you've got the right values. If you are doing a manual update, so you've made changes to map.ginger or you've made changes to YAML files, you'll see the changes here. And you can even just effectively copy paste that into the file, you know, at the most manual level.
Personally, when I did my pull request for OpenSSH, I first generate the salt map data dump YAML before my modification, and after that, salt show me the diff between the first and the next one. So it was easy to see what was the difference between all platforms.
Basically,
for all platforms.
Like a TDD kind of approach. You start with the test first, and then you make sure that it adjusts to that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of scope here for, you know, how we can improve this over time. But I think we're at a nice mature level now. Like when I was doing all the YAML dumping, I wasn't confident. You know, I mentioned it to you maybe a few meetings back, maybe even a couple of months back, but I wasn't happy with the shape of it. And like I said, Daniel's come along and just cleaned it all up, put it into a nicer structure. So now that we can actually, I believe we can use this now throughout our formulas. And I think we really should. Since map.ginger is such a core part of all of our formulas, knowing how our map is performing, you know, because that's some of the complaints as well, is some of our maps are so busy that it'll help us also work out what do we need to clean up or what do we need to remove from the map if it's, well, not maybe remove, but what do we need to rearrange? And it will help us give those visuals that at the moment we can't quite do. There's no way to discuss these things, and having that in the actual repos themselves will make it a lot easier. So we're all good and happy with that?
Yeah, I'm okay. I found it's a great feature. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. And that's good.
It's a good test, yes, and I agree with what you say just now.
Yes, and personally, I'm much more confident by making some modification to map.ginger because
definitely.
we have some tests to
I think that's the point. Map.ginger is so core that whenever I see a PR that touches map.ginger, I get concerned because I don't know what's going to happen to maybe one of the other platforms. I've got Debian Blaze platforms at my side, but I don't know what's going to happen to Red Hat. And I'm like, you know, and I don't want to sit there spinning up so many instances of Kitchen on my side. I just wanted to know what changes will this implicate for all the other platforms as well. So definitely map.ginger, now you can go forward with confidence. So that's good. We can maybe put that through to the template formula then.
Yes.
You want me to make the PR?
Yeah, please, if you don't mind. That's good as well. Well, actually, what I was doing, to be honest, is I was doing these two formulas, which I've now put through, so that I can get the comparison of what can be done by the SSF. Like for example, the library is always the same, so that's fine. These files obviously need to be done. I mean, these are all covered as well. I'm just thinking these are fine. It's just what's the right way? Even this is okay. That's done by the SSF as well. So you're saying, I mean, what's the last level of automating these files for the first PR? Is there a? Did you say you had a snippet or something somewhere, that a gist or something?
I'm just doing kitchen for kitchen verify.
Yeah.
And I'm just copying the salt map map data dump in the Git repository.
Javier, can we do this using Travis? Is there a way of? I've not played with the assets in Travis. Can we do this from there?
I don't know.
I
I
think
could try.
No, yeah, I don't know either. I never tried that.
Because I reckon we could probably
making Travis doing the commit.
Making Travis do, you know, because rather than spinning up all the kitchen on your own, I mean, you've maybe got a good setup there, but I'm thinking if we can do it in Travis, where each of the file that's produced is actually like an asset from the repo, and then we can use the semantic release to actually grab that file and put it into the repo. We might be able to automate it from a Travis perspective rather than have to do anything manually.
I'm thinking out loud here. We will need to produce the file before running the tests, because one of the tests is to compare the output of the dump.
I'm thinking
and if that is okay, produce the final one to be left in the repo as a commit, right? With the release or something like that.
Yes, you're right. Chicken and egg. Is there some sort of primary, like a first run we could do in Travis? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Anyway, but in the meantime, if that gist is available, if Daniel can provide that, we can start with that and then figure out from there how to maybe take another step forward if we can and put everything into, because then we make it accessible to everybody and make it a lot easier for all of the formulas that people want to do this for. It just becomes, you know, run this in Travis and it will pretty much help us do everything.
I think that we can do something like this. For example, on a PR, we create the file, the dump, with a pre-run job.
Yep.
The run uses that file because it's in the directory, and if the run runs successfully, it's merged.
Yeah, I think we could do something like that. I think again, just introducing that stage would also just be an additional help, and then we have the actual PR for actually performing the verification and comparisons. But let's do a few more. As we do a few more, it'll become clear. So yeah, Daniel, if you're happy to do the template Formula One, that'd be great. And then I can start also trying to work out what the SSF can provide to make this process a lot easier.
Okay.
Lovely.
Just a comment.
Yeah.
About the idea of automating the generation of map data.
Yeah.
Because if we generalize this test, which is a good one, it means also every contributor will need to fix the map data if it changes the map.ginger.
Yeah.
So if it's a new contributor, it can be a little frightening. I don't know if the correct word, but it can be a little difficult. So maybe if we have a way to generate it automatically on a Travis, even if we need to copy paste, then it's a first step which can be quite interesting.
Yes, I get your point, definitely. Two minds here. Although the automation is fantastic, that would be the best solution. But if a contributor is willing to touch map.ginger or, you know, touch the actual map that's being produced, should they not be comfortable enough or introduced to how to touch these map files as well, these test files? Because we do want to encourage contributors to add testing to whatever they're doing. So I don't know if it's the hardest test in the world to ask them to update this file so that it matches what they've done in the map.ginger or in the YAML file.
Maybe, but I can imagine someone just changing the defaults.yml and not saying the difficulties, the complexity of the map.ginger, just saying the defaults. And okay, well, I'm okay to.
Yeah.
to see what happens. But
no, you're completely right. But I still think if you can touch defaults.yaml, which will affect so many of the platforms, you should also be able to understand fully the implications of your changes by looking at these test files and filling in your change throughout all of them. I know what you're saying. It's tedious, but I don't think it's the hardest thing in the world. It's not like writing new tests in inspec, for example, like, you know, all the inspec type commands. It's just adding in the same configuration value that you've added to defaults and just adding it to the files to make sure that, yes, it's working across all platforms. I agree with you, though. Automating it would be even easier.
you're right. It's just tedious. It's the right word.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm okay.
Yeah,
Just-
brilliant.
Do we have, excuse me, to ease that path, do we have something for, oh, maybe my sound is a little bit too loud.
No, it's okay.
It's okay. Do
Yeah.
we have some real diff, because you know the inspect is doing a strange diff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when you have some troubles, and that part is quite hard to
Yeah, what?
to debug for a new user.
Yeah,
Imagine someone is touching default.yaml. Okay, so he pushed that pull request, and the
Yeah.
pull request, the test fails because the map data files are not in line.
yes. Let me
But
give an example. Yeah,
it's
you
not
keep going.
easy to get what's the real difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll show. I mean, I normally hack it away in Vim, but I bet you there is a way of doing it, like you said. So let me give the example of what Daniel means. The diff at the end that inspect gives is not pretty at all. It's very ugly. Let's see if I've got it here.
Yeah, inspect diffs are quite not readable.
Yeah, see, this is it here. So, for example, it's expecting this, and it's not given it in a format. It's not formatted. You know, you have to manually change those new lines and all the rest of it. And here's the actual. So this is the diff there. It's not useful. It's very hard to follow. So what we're saying is, can we get a nicer version of this diff? And I was thinking is, we've got the actual map data in a variable, and we've got the file available already. So why can't we perform our own diff somehow as part of the map data state?
Inspec offers different outputters. I don't remember the name, verifiers.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
You are using just CLI. Probably there's some better ones. I know there's a JSON one and some others. Perhaps just changing the outputter.
Have I got that wrong? Is it? How do you spell that? Is that correct?
Jason.
Oh, Jason. Sorry, my fault.
Yeah, sorry. No, my bad.
No, it's okay. So what we're saying is output it as something else instead, yeah?
Yeah, reporter. They call them reporter. They have HTML, progress, JSON, JSON min, JSON RSpec, unit, JUnit documentation.
So, do we know what the default one is?
No idea. We are using CLI.
Okay. Oh yeah.
It's the one that looks kind of best in the console, but perhaps for automation we can change to some other one.
Okay. Sure. So would you be able to play, Daniel, maybe when you're doing the template formula, do you want to try something there, or?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. All right, brilliant. So that's the section there, the reporters. But so when you're saying JSON, I mean, it would hopefully come out getting a JSON diff, something like this, but just the actual bits that's changed, yeah? The differences. Yeah?
Well, yeah, we'll have to see what's possible, I guess.
Okay. All right, so that's all that section there. And we're happy to go forward. That's good. So let's close all those off because they're not useful to us right now. And let's have a look at where we were. David, should we, I know we spoke about it last week and we didn't get around to doing much, but I did make these tasks for us.
Right.
In terms of our open collective idea. So the point, David, do you want to just explain the bit about the fiscal host? I'll open the other tab in the meantime.
I'm kind of busy. I'm sorry. I've got to attend to something else.
Okay. All right, no problem. I'll just briefly try to cover it here then. Let's see if I can get the thing up. So I'm just going to touch this. I mean, there's most of this is in last meeting, which can be, it's already uploaded to YouTube. But the idea is to move forward with this idea of using Open Collective. We need to select a fiscal host, like where we want them to be based. So the obvious idea is in the US, but Europe is also a possibility. We'd have to talk to SaltStack about that. Is there any reason? I mean, Javier was mentioning maybe Europe is a better idea, but is there any particular preference where we have that fiscal host if we use Open Collective? Whether we should stick to the US because SaltStack is based there, or whether we want it in Europe for some other reason?
I particularly go with some other reason. I prefer the Europe, but I have no trouble on.
The main thing was you were saying, like, in terms of privacy issues and stuff, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know. I rather prefer the GDPR than the US rules, but I don't think that it would matter much at the moment.
Any particular? Yeah, go on.
I could agree with Javier too.
So we'll try and state a preference for Europe.
I mean, I don't think it's changed anything, it bothered, but if there is any question or trouble, I think US is more susceptible to have problems with specific countries or whatever, financial transfers or whatever.
Right. So, okay, so that's a reason for Europe. Daniel, any particular preference here?
No, no, not particularly. I live in France and I don't see anything to get in US personally, but I'm backing others' arguments.
Yeah. Okay, then. Well, I think, like I said, myself and David will, discuss this and try and put something through. I did send the beginning of communication with SaltStack for this, but we need to write an email with all the details through to some of the main people in SaltStack to move this forward. But anyway, there was a lot of progress made by David in the previous weeks, so hopefully we will have an answer for you guys, in the next couple of weeks or so. So that's that issue over there. Let's close this. So we're good for that. Let's have a look what we had over here for a second. So we spoke about the testing. Did you want to discuss this a bit further, Daniel? Did you want to bring this idea further? The whole changing map.ginger a bit more, or?
Yes, if you want.
Yeah, let's discuss it at least, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the idea was that someone, I don't remember who, on IRC and
It was
Slack.
Orange Dog. Orange Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Said that the config get lookup and config get is not really proper names and can be used by someone or something else. And the idea was to use a syntax like targeting, like salt targeting system. And yes, if you look in the describe the changes,
yeah,
a little bit, yes, this perfect. The idea is to have in the MapJinja sources to define two things. First, mostly a type. Either we are looking from YAML files, like we do actually. This is a default when you don't specify anything with an arrobas, okay? Or we are doing config get lookup, like the config get and config get lookup, okay? But we can specify the names directly after an arrobas. So it's much more compact because we don't have two variables to configure the MapJinja. We don't have the config get routes. We put everything in sources. And I did, as I was using C for config get, I did the same with G and I to restrict for grains and pillar. If for any reason a user want to get to query specifically grains and not doing a config get, because you know we can have some issue when you are switching from grains to config get, because you are looking for other places than the grains. So I decided to put C, G, and I to query config get grains or pillar. So you have YAML files or config gets or grains or pillar. And then for YAML files, when you get the grain or pillar name, you can choose again to have either config get grains or pillar. And for OpenSSH, I did the config get roots because OpenSSH was exporting 3 variables by MapJinja and not a single one. So I did some, yes, this ones. So I did a sub type for the config get. I did the colon sub to make MapJinja export specific sub case. Instead of having, for example, map data SSHD enabled, the colon sub make map data dot OpenSSH dot SSHD enabled. I think the example is much more, yes. Can you scroll a little bit down, please?
Yep.
Yes, yes, you have this, and you have the text in the comments.
The
You
text
know,
in the
by
comment.
default, when there is no arrobas sign, it's
Yeah.
YAML colon
Yeah.
config get arrobas. Yes, like this one.
Yeah.
This one says that I do YAML.
Yeah.
I load values from YAML,
Yeah.
and I query the DNS domain
By grain.
from grains only from grains. I think what we see here is a good resume of what this pull request is doing. Do you have questions, or do you need some more precision, specific information? Or
I'll let others start because I've been obviously playing around with the map.ginger with you for a while. So let's see where it's coming from another perspective first.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else want to bring some queries or concerns about this?
I'm not sure because I'm not a power user of map.jinja, so I don't. I looked at the PR just in the morning, but I'm not sure I completely understand what it's for. I understand it's to specify where you are looking for and what your discriminant is, grains or pillar or config.get. That's why I understand, but I'm not sure I know how to use it. So it's not a problem for me for now. I don't have the need. So I will wait for examples or things like that.
Yeah, I think personally, I think that the specific PR is PR, excuse me, will be mostly useful for formula authors or contributors who want to keep compatibility, like for OpenSSH, because by default you just specify like at the beginning OS Arch, OS Family, OS Finger, without the Y, C, G, or I specifier, and it's working like V4 MapJinja. But for formula which needs different top-level keys, I find personally it's much more clear than having two separate variables, MapJinja sources and MapJinja config get roots. That's why, yes, I don't think users will be a lot faced to that specific technical parts. It's much more for formula authors and contributors.
Yeah.
So it means that this pair on merge have an impact on contributors because when I look at the screen right now, it says users can now define map.jinja. So I thought it was for users of the formula, not the authors. And maybe that's what I don't understand. One of the things.
Yes. Actually, users with the V4 map Jinja, users can define the sources
Yes.
like looking up some roles, DNS domain, and that's I will say that is the only thing users will see. So as a user of a formula, if I want to add lookup for role-based YAML files, I copy paste the map Jinja sources from defaults, if it's in defaults, or from the map.jinja itself, the built-in values. I copy paste the list and add the line I want, like the second and third before the end.
Yeah, these
The
ones
roles
over
and
here.
DNS domains. Yes.
Yes.
So I just copy paste what's the default and add my own lines. And I think that's the only thing the users will be will see about this PR.
Just a side thought for a minute. Since we're ready to do breaking changes across so many PRs, should we start getting rid of this whole idea of a lookup? It's just confusing so many things.
Excuse me, I'm not sure I understood.
What I mean is even in that same discussion we had that day with Orange Dog, and around that time we were discussing the whole concept of this lookup and what it's actually serving, the purpose of it. And obviously we had a long discussion ourselves, a few months back about what does a lookup actually mean? What does it actually provide? If we're working through formulas and we're working with breaking changes that we can introduce I don't mean today, but maybe in coming months, would it be an idea to get rid of this confusion of having, two parts of the pillar that are being merged?
Well, actually, with this PR, if we want to get rid of the lookup, we just need to remove the lookup lines and provide another pillar in the pillar example, because users will need to modify their own pillars.
Yes. I'm saying that from our perspective, should we in the longer term should we be even keeping a lookup in the longer term of things? Is it still something we need in the modern use of salt stack formulas? Like, of course, formulas have been using it, but should we be working towards removing these? Like in new formulas, should new formulas be having a lookup? Do we still need one?
I'm not sure about that.
I agree with what you're saying, Imran.
That we should be working towards losing the lookup.
Yeah.
Well, I agree that lookup doesn't, personally, I don't think it serves any useful purpose.
Right, so.
Agreed. All the time I see lookup in the pillars. I find lookup in the pillars. It seems that either somebody copied it from some old place and don't clearly know what to use it for, or it's there and not being used. I've seen a couple of formulas having a reference to lookup, but then pulling values directly from the root of the pillar. So I think that is something that is confusing, and if it had a purpose in the past, it doesn't seem to have a purpose now.
Yeah, Eric might have a different side of this, especially since, Eric, in your use case that you said last time, if we did take a formula now and say we're going to put the lookup into the main pillar now, and we had that as a formula change, a breaking change, would you be okay with those sort of ideas that we did that, or you think there's still a reason to keep the lookup?
No, as I said before, I like the idea of separating core parameters to configuration values, but I think today most of the formulas have no real difference or are merging them together. Like sudoers sudoers formula is merging the two. You can use lookup or not use it, is the same. And I think most or the separation between using lookup or not is not clear. So even if I liked the idea of separating, of a clear separation, I'm not sure it has any sense right now in the actual state of the formulas. So I won't be against the idea of removing it completely.
In the long term. And actually, this
Yeah.
idea here, this idea that Daniel's bringing as well, we can obviously keep it very easily. And when the time comes, if we do decide to remove lookups from a formula, it should be just very straightforward to do that by removing these lines. Is that right, Daniel?
Yes, there is no need to modify map.jinja itself to remove the lookup. Before, in the v4 map Jinja, the lookup was built in the Jinja sources, but now it's just a key. It's just a line in the map Jinja sources array. So you just have to remove those lines, and you will remove the lookup for OpenSSH lookup.
Okay, I think that's a very interesting decision that we can start looking at for the future. And maybe again, another thing we can change in the template formula so that people stop, using a lookup that in the future we're probably going to not use anymore. But
maybe we could do that for the template formula quite quickly, actually. For
yeah,
new
maybe
formula to avoid using lookup.
Maybe, yeah. It might be worth, because it sounds like everyone's in agreement. It doesn't serve a purpose anymore in the modern age of how we're using formulas. But any more particular, I mean, I like the idea of this, definitely. I'm wondering, because even myself, with all the familiarity with your map.jinja work, there's still a cognitive level that I have to still go, looking at this and working out, okay, how would that work out for the end user? So even myself, that one step is quite a big step. So I'm just explaining to you, Daniel, probably the feedback you're getting is not going to be very thorough, because until we all play with it much more and actually try it out, it's still a bit confusing until we actually use it.
Yes, yes, and it's a job I did only today, so there is no long feedback on that. So
my idea, as always, is I'm happy to implement it in, say, one formula like the OpenSSH, confirm it's working the way we're expecting. I really like the idea of separating these, for example, as well, because in the Zabbix formula we had a bug that came because config.get was pulling values in from one of the grains, and it was merging that instead of the pillar values. So the pillar was still set up the same for the end user, but now we were using config.get, it was pulling in one of the grain value or one of the other values instead, and it was causing a bug to take place for that person's usage of the formula. So being able to specify, I think, is very useful as well. So I'm happy to look at this in the coming days. And if we're good, we can merge it here, and then we can then bring that discussion back to the rest of the team to show how it's moving forward.
okay.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why the OpenSSH formula was so important is because this was one of the formulas that had multiple exports from map.jinja itself. So we had these three values that are being exported as separate routes from the formula, which I've never actually. That's another question. Just another question. When we have a formula like this, should there be three exports from it? And what's the purpose of having these separately?
Oh, to have this separately is to avoid how to say that. I think there is some configuration files that just dump the content of one root key.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you mix everything, you will dump everything which is not valid for some part of OpenSSH.
So if they,
sorry, you asked for the difference between which two files? In ROM.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
No, what I mean, okay, let's just sorry, I don't know if my question was very clear. So if I just go to the map Ginger here for a second.
Can I?
Yeah.
You asked why there is three entry points in the pillar data or the map generated.
Yes.
And I think in reality, I don't know why it's maybe the explanation is it simply dumps, but I think it could be sub keys, maybe.
That's what I was
No,
asking. Yeah, go on.
also maybe
You don't think so?
I think it's kind of legacy. I remember I used this formula for a long time, and instead of using a pillar root named OpenSSH, it used directly SSHD underscore config and SSH the underscore config.
Yeah, like it is here. You see, it has it here as separate
Yeah.
roots. But I'm asking.
So it sounds kind of a legacy issue that where the pillar got never unified. So probably that's the reason. When the point is that OpenSSH configures mostly the service in general, SSHD the daemon, and SSH underscore config the client. But probably they should be merged in a single pillar.
As subkeys of OpenSSH, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I think it's possible technically. It's a breaking change, a big one, but I think it's possible. There's
Yeah,
no.
this separation is, for me, it's kind of legacy from a long time ago, and
Yeah.
never got much really. I kind of remember a couple other formulas doing some sort of separation like that, and yeah.
I mean, obviously, we don't have to change it. There's no need to, give people trouble for no reason. But I was just wondering why it was done in the first place. I was just interested.
Yeah, because today with the V4 and the new pull request, there is no breaking change for users for the
Yes.
template. And actually, in the SLS files, you only have map data which is exported, and then we are using map data dot OpenSSH or map data dot SSH. I don't think you will see that here.
It's not here yet.
No, it's in SLS files only.
But have you made that change already? You've already made that change, yeah?
Yes. It's already in place. It's
Okay, so let's have a look at.
config, for example, or yes.
Oops.
Yeah,
So
at the top.
yeah,
Map
so
data dot, yeah.
So it's already under a subkey already.
Yeah.
Effectively.
And yeah.
So in a sense, it doesn't matter because it's already now. In a sense, it's already done. I don't think we need to really change it. I was just more interested in why it's actually happened in the first place. But with the, like you said, with the new map Ginger, we get a lot more control over what's being merged into the map anyway. So we don't really need to worry too much, I think.
Yes, it was only tricky for the map Ginger implementation, and it's done actually. So we don't have to change and break things.
Right. Fantastic. I'll have a look at this in the coming days. And like I said, are the rest of you okay if we just keep moving forward with this in the OpenSSH formula? And as we discover any issues, we can raise them with you. Is that okay?
I will freeze my used version.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's easy to do now. But I don't think this will actually. I don't think this will affect you. I mean, the changes they're all reverse compatible, aren't they?
Okay. I am already locking the version, but it's more a joke.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. It's good to be clear. The describing how to use the documentation. I think this is a matter of just people actually getting around to reading it and looking through it. But since this is explaining how to use the new, so this is mainly the new map.ginger, right? Is that correct?
Yes, but I may need to make some changes for the new pull requests on OpenSSH. If we need to, I don't remember to put some section about the new map Ginger sources and the targeting like syntax.
Should we put all of this into should we keep all new map Ginger development and documentation in the OpenSSH for now, rather than the libvirt?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, because that's where the cutting edge of the map.ginger is now. Maybe it's
Yeah.
best if we put it there, because then the documentation would. I mean, obviously
Yes.
it could be used here in the end, but
I
or should we?
It's just because I started the documentation in libvirt, but I can actually
Or-
do a pull request in OpenSSH.
You know, it might be even better if we just do it under the GitHub repo where the other documentation is, perhaps, and we can link to it from there at one central place rather than having it in multiple formulas.
I was thinking about doing like the TOFS. I think
Okay.
as a user, when you clone the repository, it's
Yeah.
much more better to get the documentation right away.
Okay.
Contributors can
yeah.
go on GitHub, but users, as a user, I prefer to have the documentation under my hand.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
So I will
Javier,
do the pull request under OpenSSH, right?
I think it's better there because we're cutting edge there, and then obviously this new change you've just made, that'll actually have to go into the documentation as well, won't it?
Okay, fine.
Yeah, maybe just put it part of that PR,
Yeah.
possibly part of the same PR, because it's all documentation for that PR.
Okay.
Okay, we're almost out of time. Just the last couple of points. Eric and Javier, I will get around to this as soon as I can, so you guys can move forward with this. Because was there any particular things I need to look out for here on this in this formula?
Not that I remember. Basically, that you needed to check it didn't need any change or special change to fit with the SSF formula and be usable.
Yeah, I'll do that definitely. I'm just saying there's nothing else I need to be particularly concerned about, nothing specific.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, well, the functionality works. I'm just using it.
Was there any bits from Eric's PR? Was there anything useful from there that we can pull in? Eric, was there anything different?
I don't think so. No. I will look at it if I fixed some tests or some things, but I don't think so.
Okay. So my job is just to run this through the SSF and get this made. I'll try to do that fairly soon. So that'll be covered. And was there any remaining issues to think about? So the sponsors, documentation, contact, these are all just older things that are there that we haven't. I mean, I still need to get around to the new Tiamat builds, put those in. Oh, pre-commit. Javier, just quickly, how did you find adding the pre-commit to that PR? Because obviously David's provided the pre-commit, which is excellent. So David, are you still there? Because I just wanted to ask you.
I am.
Did you see that little section about automating the installation of pre-commit? I think I linked it at one point to you.
Yeah, I did see that. Are you, as far as I understand it, that's something a user would do for themselves on their individual setup. But are you suggesting that we kind of implement that ourselves somehow? Or
Well, let's quickly ask the others. So the idea is...
but the only reason I say that is because it affects more than just formulas then.
Does it? I didn't look at it.
Well, I mean, my understanding of it is that if a repo has, if you do this setup, if a repo has pre-commit, it will execute it whether you install the hooks or not, or deliberately install the hooks.
Okay, because what I was thinking...
So,
yeah.
I'm just thinking, it's something that if we were to kind of utilize it, it's something that would affect more than just formulas. And so for me, it seems like something that's more a user would choose to do that for themselves.
Okay, so going back to Javier for a minute, I'm saying is when you put the pre-commit into that new formula, everyone who uses that formula still needs to actually, because you have to set it up for every single formula. And how was that process? Is it okay just to keep doing it manually for every formula you've got pre-commit configured for?
What I did in my case was just added the pre-commit to the Travis, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So,
and did you install it locally?
No, I was going to try it locally, but got sidetracked by some other things. The thing that I noticed that my local tests, the precommit uses the configuration in the, it's all in the Travis YAML file. When it pulls the Docker image, it has a bunch of configuration there that didn't match what I had in, for example, in the YAML lint or things like that. So when I run my local test with YAML lint or SALint, they passed. But when they run with precommit on the PR, they did not, because they were checking different files. So I had to adapt them. So in that case, using precommit locally will overcome the local YAML files, the config files I guess?
No, it's not supposed to.
Oh, so it should use the files I have locally.
Well, if they're in the repo, if they're committed in
Yeah.
the repo.
Yeah, they are, but then why the Travis entry? I copied the Travis stanza from some other repo or from template, if I recall correctly.
Template for me.
Yeah, and it has a configuration entries there for the precommit runs. So I'm not sure if they use the files you have locally. At least they differ.
Did you add the pre-commit config YAML file as well?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, yeah. But see that you have there the
what formula was it again? I can't even remember now, can I? Okay, one second. One second. I'll... No, we'll find it here. We'll find it here. Here we go. Prometheus. Yeah, you did add it.
Oh, yeah.
So there was some sort of conflict between the two, yeah? So Travis and pre-commit were doing different things.
Go down some more.
Yeah.
See there that you have the configuration, the arguments, for example, for the files for YAML lint.
Oh, yeah. So YAML lint here.
Yeah, for example, those differ from what the .YAML lint file configuration file has. And the precommit was taking these parameters instead of the others.
Yeah, that is.
Oh, it's in Travis.
Yeah, if you're talking specifically about the like the targeting of the files, then yeah, that does differ. Because pre-commit needs to know which files. When you're doing it locally, the whole point is that you don't run pre-commit on every file in the repo. You only run it on ones which are in that particular commit.
Okay, but how about this? How about this file here? You see,
right,
there's some ignores here that would have to be adjusted. All right, I've got what's going on. Yeah, because there are some specific ignores for certain repos, we're going to have that conflict sometimes. So we need to, so when I do this from the SSF perspective, I'm going to have to make sure that gets added, the extra bits get added to, so it's a bit more complicated. It has to be added to the ignores over here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that the point is the entries there will always drift apart from those on the files. So either we try to see if we can, I don't know, mount bind the config file here and use that.
Oh, you mean actually use the YAML lint file itself?
Yeah.
The configuration. So use this directly, maybe. Yeah. So use this instead of providing our own list. Is that possible?
Perhaps we can. YAML,
no, but what?
Yeah, go ahead.
That kind of skips one of the features of pre-commit. So that's all I'm saying is, if you do that, you're kind of missing out on a benefit of pre-commit.
In what way, sorry?
How so?
Yeah.
because pre-commit only runs the checks on that particular commit that you're preparing on your local machine. And so if you're,
So let's say I'm touching this file here.
well, I mean, the first question is, why does that need to be ignored?
What you found is Ginger's being used in quite a few files.
Yeah, well, I've kind of thought about that, and really, we should be. I think we should be looking at adding our own kind of Ginger pipe YAML check. So kind of formatting, rendering the Ginger into the YAML. I know this is kind of...
Okay, how would you render this in YAML? The problem is it's different on every machine.
All you need are dummy entries.
Yeah, what I did actually for other formulas, because this wasn't my addition here. What I did, I started getting this to be put into map.ginger itself, as at the end is to update this in manually. Not manually, sorry, append it at the end of map.ginger rather than putting it in the YAML files.
Okay.
And so what that does, it avoids this problem, and you don't have to add it to the YAML lint ignore list. But the problem with this now, okay, one thing that's definitely going to help is if we get to the new version 4, version 5 of map.ginger that Daniel's providing, we won't have this problem anymore because this will be kept in its own separate macOS configuration file. It won't be affecting the other OSs.
Okay.
All right. I know what you're saying, and I understand what Javier's saying. So the one question is, though, is if we did use this YAML lint file in place of this block here, is that possible? And if it is possible, what's wrong with doing that? As in, so replacing this whole section here.
It's possible, but then you would have to run that YAML check on every commit or every commit that you're preparing. So because what pre-commit does is it looks at what files you're touching in the commit. And if you're not touching a particular type of file, it doesn't run the checks.
Right, so you're saying that this would actually run across all files in the repo still, every commit?
Yes, regardless if they were touching YAML files or not. Now, maybe this doesn't matter because, we're not really talking about repos over hundreds and thousands of files or anything. But to me, it's kind of less elegant, I guess you could say. But I mean, yeah, it is possible. Right, then you would have to change one of those values there to something like run always or something like that. When you're defining this check in front of you, there's something like run always or something like that.
Okay. I'm just saying,
run.
From a maintenance perspective, it's going to be tough to keep these in sync all the time. Especially because I know there's a lot of formulas that use ignores, other ignores other than the normal ones.
Yeah, okay, but then I'll say, what's the difference between keeping the YAML lint file in sync and keeping the pre-commit config in sync? Because you can add excludes. You can just add excludes to that next line.
Yeah, I just think it would be, it's not impossible. It's just obviously the formatting of it's different to what we've got here in YAML lint. So we'd have to obviously write that in to make sure it produces the right output over here. And right now, because I'm not familiar with exactly how pre-commit's looking for that, I wouldn't be able to do that off the top of my head. I'd have to look at this in more detail or understand, the way it uses.
Well, it's just a Python regular expression, basically.
Okay. But again, it's just a bit more maintenance to make sure you're keeping on track of, on top of all of those.
Okay, well,
it's not a problem. No, what would you do?
Yeah. I mean, I've presented my argument. I'm not the judge of this or anything. So
no, it's good. What's happened here is we've come across a scenario where it isn't working locally as it is in Travis, and we're going to need to find a solution. The ideal solution is to use the same method in SSF that produces this to produce the same thing over here, if that's going to work. Because if I added that in there, I mean, in the right format, that would work fine, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a matter of, once this all gets done, is to figure out the right way to get that done from the SSF.
Okay.
It's just a bit more work, I suppose. So when that time comes, we'll cover it. So it's not just a straightforward drop-in solution, which I was hoping for, that we just put these across all our repos. We're going to have to do this bit by bit.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I think we've overstretched today, but that's some good conversations there, useful. And we can speak hopefully in 2 weeks' time.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Fantastic. All right, guys.
Okay.
We'll catch up again soon.
See you around.
All right.
See
Take
you.
care.
Goodbye.